Hello there, listeners, and welcome to another snippet of an episode of Fashionable Fascism, where I talk about inherent fascism within society and what we can do to fight it or ultimately accept it, I suppose, but we'll explore those ideas later on in the series. So today I'd like to further discuss the school system because today we talked about an issue I find very relevant to governance within society, and that was taxation as a means of providing social services. And so, in my European history class, we discussed the aftermath of World War II and how the emergence, really the return of soldiers from the home front, creating a surplus of labor and really just revitalizing the European economy for at least the first 25 years after the war. And following this was, very closely following this was the emergence of welfare within European societies. And this is very similar to the emergence of welfare within American society, but as this was a European history class, we didn't discuss that much. And so the question was posed to our class whether or not it was all right for the government to use taxes as a means of providing social services to the people. And I argued no, of course, that is ridiculous. As Stefan Molyneux put it, taxes are basically taking blood from your left arm and using it as a transfusion for your right. It really makes no sense when the government is meant to represent the will of the people, right? Well, that's what we like to believe. In a democratic society, we enjoy the belief that the government operates based on the majority will of the people. And so, if the government believes the majority will of the people is to provide social services, then what they really should do is they should reduce taxes in order to let people use their own money to encourage social services through funding to charities and the like. And as soon as I voiced this argument in class, my teacher laughed at my altruism that people would somehow never consider donating their own money within a free market society. Not even a free market society, it's still a mixed economy where taxes could be reduced and they could use that extra money to provide social services they deem necessary. And she says, no, people won't do that. Well, then that just proves my point that the government isn't operating on the will of the people. Either it's operating on the will of the people and it's providing social services they already want, or it isn't and it's providing social services they don't want. So it's one or the other, really. And this just baffled me that my teacher could say this. And of course, fucking the whole school system is really just a propaganda machine. It's not blatant in a 1984 style, of course, but it's very, very subtextual. It requires a lot of cognitive brain power to try to interpret what they're trying to teach you and why they're trying to teach it to you and what kind of biases they have, of course. And similarly, I understand my own biases. I understand that not everything I know is right, but that makes it even easier to see when other people are wrong. And furthermore, she even called my idea that people would donate to societal welfare programs of their own accord. She noted this as simply idealistic in nature and not realistic, which is so just wrong, argumentatively. If you believe that we live in a democratic system where the will of the people is represented within the government, you are wrong. Because most people believe that the free market would never allow for welfare systems to exist. They would never, well, not welfare, of course, because that's a pejorative term for the government's intervention within social programs, but the advocacy of social programs through altruism. And I just find it ridiculous how some people believe that we need a higher system in order to engage in any altruism within society to try to benefit other people, which is just laughable because if we did not try to benefit other people on a day-to-day basis, we would not function within society. Now, you could try to benefit other people just for the sake of your own benefit in the end, but still, cooperation is really a human mechanic. It's really a universal mechanic for all animals, and that still applies within economic systems. And really, being altruistic only adds to your human capital as a person and makes you more valuable to the community and to your employer or your company if you run your own company. It makes you more valuable as a person because you're seen as somebody who can cooperate within society. And I don't know if any of my other classmates shared the same opinion that I had, but I found it interesting when I talked to one of them afterwards and discovered that he was a libertarian. And that brings me to my next subject of discussion for this video. It's more of a podcast, to be honest, because I'm just going to put a still image and you can just hear my charming voice. Sweet sounds of the 60s coming at you live. Wink. I found it interesting that he was a libertarian in this day and age. There has been a large emergence of libertarians within our society, split off from. I believe they split off from alt-right, or people who are very, very rooted within the beginnings of American society. For libertarians, they're usually split into two different parties: the minarchists and the anarchists. But I'd like to focus on the minarchists for this discussion. Minarchism, of course, if you don't know how to use the internet and just search it up, minarchism is the belief that the smallest possible government allows for the freest market. And this, of course, is wrong. The point of a government is to expand its power, and this has been proven. The Great Experiment, America, in 1783 was the smallest government. Well, after its liberation. If you want to go even before that, to the Articles of Confederation in 1776, you can use that as the basis for American government, but it was the smallest government in existence, and arguably the smallest government ever. And if you look at it today, it is the largest empire, with so many military bases within Germany, Korea, Japan, still over 60, 70 years later, and we still can't forfeit our control over other countries. And so you see how the minarchists were, I would argue, after the Revolutionary War, America was very successful in quickly industrializing because of the minimalist governments. It industrialized very quickly, just like Britain did, who both had very small governments within the economy, very laissez-faire, especially during early industrialization. And you see the decline away from that, and really the stagnation of economies since then, after the implication of social programs that really halted the innovation which marked laissez-faire economies. And so for libertarians today to still believe that minarchy can work is just laughable, really. The Great Experiment ran its course, and you can see the result now. We have a I hesitate to delve into that world of politics just yet, as this YouTube channel is still very early, and I myself don't particularly have any alignment as of now. But I find it very, very interesting that libertarians still believe that they can create a very minimalist government all over again, that they can overthrow the tyranny. Well, we already tried that, and that tyranny was much less of a threat than the one we face today. And I can only imagine if there's a successful revolution within America that we can somehow topple the government as it is now and establish another monarchy. After that experiment runs its course for the second time, the kind of Orwellian nightmare we're going to be in. And then all liberty is pretty much invalidated at that point. And the word libertarian won't even be in existence at that point. And so libertarians just need to understand that, maybe the founding fathers were wrong. They lived a quarter of a millennium ago, and that a lot of their philosophy was wrong. I mean, slavery. If you believe in basic human rights, and you believe in basic non-aggression, you can definitely see where the founding fathers might have been right, but they were certainly wrong in a lot of aspects, and this is just simple history. And so I would like to tell libertarians today that if they truly strive for liberty, freedom, and the rights that they so adhere to, that the monarchy is the very last thing that they are going to want within society today. Rather, what they should strive to do is to establish universal rules of conduct for all peoples that usually libertarians like to adhere to the non-aggression principle, which they view as the end-all be-all epitome of social construct, which I don't necessarily agree with 100%. But that's besides the point. That if libertarians truly strive for freedom, individualist in nature, if they truly want that, what they should be doing is deferring their own gratification, which is the exact opposite of what the founding fathers did. What they did was they opted to have their freedom now instead of establishing a system which would not allow for tyrannies to arise again. Basically, what they did was they were like, okay, let's write a constitution that says it's okay to overthrow the governments. Well, why don't you just establish a system which doesn't allow governments to emerge? And that's the kind of higher thinking that people a quarter century ago might not have possessed, or if they did, they were a bit scared to speak out. And so please stop praising the founding fathers as the almighty beings, which they so heavily are within the educational system today. One of the first people you learn about in the school system is George Washington, and what a godsend he was. You know, he definitely had divine right to rule. That's why he was the first president, of course. What you need to do now is you need to learn from their mistakes and choose a different path. Thank you for listening.